Today, we're going to talk about the new using keyword, which you can actually use right now because of a huge Node.js update earlier this month that brought in some cool improvements like the error is error method, npm 11, and an improved permission model that brings it slightly closer to Dino. But the new using keyword is by far my favorite addition because it completely changes how I handle cleanup code, and it may just mean you'll never have to write a try finally block ever again. Just maybe. We're going to go through a really cool use case for this. You're going to hear my honest opinion of this new syntax. But before we do that, make sure you hit subscribe and let's talk about why we need this in the first place. So imagine I wanted to create a temporary file, use it for something, close it, and then delete it. This code here is fine. But what if I wanted to close early because of a specific condition? Then I could add this block of code. But then we're starting to get some duplication. We can fix this by adding a try finally block, which works, but can get messy if you have multiple resources, especially if they depend on each other. But if we tried the new using keyword, it would look like this, which is much cleaner. But wait, how does this actually work? Well, the create temp file function actually returns an object with a symbol.dispose method. And this method will run automatically at the end of the scope or before an early return. We can demonstrate that using this example, which runs flawlessly in Node 24. And this is just a basic resource that logs out creating and disposing. And if we scroll down to the function that contains 3 using variables, function scope gets created first and then block scope. But block scope gets disposed first because we've exited this scope, and then before return gets executed, then that gets disposed before the function scope. There's also symbol.async dispose, which lets you use this funky await using syntax. This feature exists in other programming languages like Python, Java, and C#, which seems to be the language that JavaScript is slowly turning into. You can also use the DisposableStack and the async DisposableStack classes to aggregate multiple disposable resources. This also lets you create a disposable resource using the adopt method and lets you use the using keyword to dispose of a stack when it exits the scope. Yeah, that confused me the first time too. This all sounds great, but what are you actually going to be using it for? Of course, file handling and database connections are the obvious use case. But it's particularly useful for unit tests because instead of using before each and after each helper functions, you could write tests like this, making them much more portable. But if I'm being completely honest, as much as I like this feature, for the code that I write on a day-to-day basis, I'm not going to be using it that much. And when it comes to JavaScript as a whole, along with the proposal for composites, the pipe operator, and structs, I'm starting to feel like JavaScript is getting way too many features. But maybe that's just me. What do you think?